Good morning, Unity of Pompano. Good morning. So good to see all of you this morning. Welcome. Won't you please welcome our featured soloist for the day. She's here with us once again, Miss Amy Ione.
Standing outside the door, unloving mercy, you wonder if there's a place there for you. You know there's peace inside, but you're still searching for someone who understands the pain that you've been through. Well, the door's unlocked, the lights are on. What are you waiting for? Come on in, welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. Well, about where you've been, come on in. You'll find a place of rest in the arms of spirit. God's waiting so long for your homecoming day. God knows the peace you seek and the hurt you're feeling. Spirit wants to hold you and wipe your tears away. Well, the Father awaits with open arms. We're calling out your name. Come on in, welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been, come on in. Yeah. There's room enough in the house of love for someone just like you. Oh yeah. Come on in, welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been. Come on in, welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been. Come on in, welcome home. Oh yeah. Come on in, welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been. Come on in, welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been. Come on in. Thank you.
Good morning, Unity of Pompano. Happy Palm Sunday. I'm Dina Shimmick. I'm honored to be up here with our lovely spiritual leader, Bev Spivey, who will be giving the talk today. Let's give it up for her. And if you feel a bit of an absence, it's because our very own Reverend Lawrence Palmer is out this week. He underwent some minor eyelid surgery, and he is at home resting. He'll be back with us for Maundy, Thursday, and of course for Easter Sunday. This is actually, in 45 years of ministry, only the second time that he has missed due to a health concern. And this is his first time missing Palm Sunday. So if he's watching, we're sending him lots of love and healing energy. Thank you so much for honoring your body, your healing, and your doctor's orders, and we hope you're recovering. And to everyone else out on live stream, good morning to you as well. We hope you feel a part of this community even though you're not physically here with us. And let's give it up again for our musicians, led by James McCoy.
Morning. Just back from being on the road with the touring show Beautiful, we have Mr. John Rose at the piano with us this morning. We have Mr. Jeff Renz at the drum set. And playing the keyboard 2 chair direct from Las Vegas, Nevada, Mr. David Seeger. And you met our featured soloist, Amy Ione. And it's just all Palm Sunday music all day today. So.
And here at Unity, we have a theme for the year, and this year our theme is One Humanity, Many Stories. We honor our diversity here and how we all show up with different experiences and life stories, and we are all embraced and know that we are welcome here. And our theme for the month is Being Enough. If you could please say the affirmation with me. I rise up and reclaim my true identity as a sacred being. And let that just flow right into our vision. Centered in God, we create an ever-expanding spiritual community of one. and our mission. We are a spiritual beacon of inspiration, abundance, and enlightenment. And let's take that mission and vision into our hearts as we close our eyes and go into some centering prayer. Let's take a deep breath together and release it. And feel the peace that comes with being home, with being a part of this spiritual center. That knowing that we can come in and put our worries aside, that there are going to be people here that will support us and love us and honor us, and that we also can be open to receiving the message, the love that flows through Unity of Pompano, the music, and the fellowship. And for this time together, we feel immensely grateful, and so it is. And this week, our prayer together is our prayer for our nation. If you could please say it aloud with me. We have faith in the love and wisdom of God within every person and situation. We affirm that our country's citizens and its leaders are guided to positive, prosperous, harmonious action that manifests in the highest good for all people. And so it is. And now if you could please rise as we sing together.
I am spirit-led, spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led. I am spirit-led, spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led. Flowing like a river of peace. I am nature's wandering child. Love cannot be added to me. I am made complete in the divine. I am spirit-led, spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led. I am spirit-led, spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led. There's magic in every day, like a beautiful song. As I'm choosing my way, there's a voice inside to guide me along. I am spirit-led, spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led. I am spirit-led, spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led. I am spirit-led, spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led. I am spirit-led, oh yeah, spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led.
I want to give a big thank you to Melissa Curry for arranging our beautiful palms that we have back here on our stage this morning. Thank you so much, Melissa. We'd also like to recognize anyone that's here for the first time. If you don't mind raising your hand, we simply have a brochure to give you. Welcome. Welcome. And we would love to invite you and everyone else to fellowship next door, right through the double doors, where we have refreshments, some good community time of sharing with one another. And then all of our many announcements are there on a bulletin board. And if you miss out on any of them as we breeze through, know that you can always go to www.unitypompanobeach. Don't worry, I got it. It's going to be okay. Where you can find all of our many happenings that are going on throughout the week, especially this busy week of Holy Week. Prayer is very important to us. You guys should already know this, but Unity is founded on prayer, and it has transformed the lives of not only our founders, but many of us here. We have many opportunities for you to pray with us. 30 minutes before the service, there's a chaplain in the first room on the right, and 30 minutes after to pray with you or to simply just hold space with you while you sit in the silence. Also, you'll notice at the end of the service, our chaplains will line up along the sanctuary, and they're available for prayer as well. And then in the chair backs, there's blue prayer slips that we invite you to fill out so that we can pray for you, and then we send those on to Unity Village where they are held in prayer 24/7 for 30 days. Today, Bev will be leading our Sunday session, so make sure you have a little treat next door. Don't bring any of it in here, please, except for water. And she will get started right at 12:30, where she will delve into any questions you may have about any of the services and the talks this month or anything else that might be on your mind that you want to delve a little bit deeper into. And this Palm Sunday marks the beginning of our Holy Week, which is such a special week here at Unity of Pompano. Starting with Maundy Thursday, a beautiful service that we do every single year. It's the only time of year that we share communion. Bev and Lawrence do a beautiful job of going into the metaphysics of Easter and the whole Holy Week and everything that leads up to that, including some Passover traditions. And we then finish it up next door with the communion, which is a beautiful service. If you can come on out from 7 to 8. Then on Friday, Good Friday, from 12 to 3, Reverend Louise Morley is going to be here, as she does every year, for a prayer vigil, where in between that time you can come in and out, sit in the silence, and on the hour she will go ahead and say a scripture. It is another beautiful way for you to bring in this prayer week. And then Easter Sunday, back here again next week for our Easter celebration at 11 a.m. We hope to see you all for that as well. Our Easter lily dedication we do every year. If you have a memory of someone that has passed, perhaps someone that you love in your life now, someone you want to say a prayer for, you may purchase an Easter lily for $10. You can sign up in the narthex this morning and go ahead and put a dedication, and we will list the names up so that we could be holding them in memory or just sending prayers their way. We will line the stage with all the Easter lilies, and when the service is over, you can go ahead and take your lily with you. So make sure you sign up for that in the narthex. And while you're in the narthex, there's a ton to sign up for, so make sure you get it all in today. So we are doing, once again, California Pizza Kitchen, where they donate 20% of the proceeds for a full day on April 30th, whether you're just getting something to go or you're going to dine in. But we have such a good time being together that we've decided to meet at 6:30 p.m. as a group. If you are interested, please sign up. That way we could just get a count and make sure there's plenty of space reserved for that. And again, that is going to be on April 30th, and we are meeting at 6:30. And once again, we're having a church picnic, back by popular demand. We're going again to Spanish River Park. Our sign-up sheet is not whether you're going to be in attendance, but it's who is willing to volunteer. We need grill masters. We need people to decorate. We need people to show up and help with the food, help with the activities, the music. So if you would be so kind and sign up in the narthex for anything you may be willing to serve and give. And also you may see Judy as well. Raise your hand, please, who is our amazing events coordinator. Hey, give it up for Judy. And with that being said, let's stand and greet one another.
This is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let's all sing. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. That the Lord has made.
Good morning. I'm Catherine Cuevas Kirksey, and I'm one of your newest prayer chaplains. I'm going to be reading the daily word for today, which is hope. The Spirit of God dwells in me, and I am made perfect. The Gospels tell a story of Jesus entering Jerusalem riding on a donkey, welcomed by crowds spreading palm branches and even their cloaks in his path. His followers found hope of liberation from oppression. Today, a new order of things begins in my life. Like the crowds welcoming Jesus with their shouts of Hosanna, I welcome a renewed awareness of I am my Christ nature. In this awareness, my hope of release from limitations is realized. The Spirit of God dwells in me, and I am made perfect. Anchored in spiritual peace, wisdom, abundance, and harmony, I am grateful for my ever-expanding realization of God as my source. Today's scripture is from Psalm 62, verse 5. For God alone my soul waits in silence, for my hope is from him.
Right now, as the prayer chest comes forward, we'd like to begin a time of prayer and meditation by singing together, I am at peace. I am at peace, I am at peace, I am one with the Spirit, I am calm, I am still, I am doing God's will. I am at peace, I am at peace, I am one with the Spirit, and I dwell in the presence of the Lord. I am at peace, I am at peace, I am one with the Spirit, I am calm, I am still, I am doing God's will. I am at peace, I am at peace, I
your spirits, and I dwell in the presence of the Lord, and I dwell in the presence of the Lord.
And now, as we have this opportunity to meditate together, I invite you all to close your eyes and get comfortable. And let's simply start with our breath. Breathing in, releasing by breathing out. Noticing how our breath gives our body permission to just be for a moment. How our breath gives our mind permission to turn down any incessant thoughts, anything that's out of alignment with the peace and the stillness of the next few moments we have together. And as we find comfort within our body, comfort within our mind and our thoughts, we feel how good it feels just to be still, to have nothing to do, but to sit in our own energy for a few moments. And with our theme this month being enough, I want you to remind yourself of how enough you are over the next few moments. Now's the time to deny any labels you've put on yourself. Having to be somewhere at the perfect timing, to say the right words. Know that your presence and you showing up is enough. Anytime you feel as though you're judging yourself or comparing yourself to another, put that aside and remember the divine being that you are, and that you are more than enough. How you show up, how you serve, how you lighten a room is all you, is your divine light. And you are more than enough. Over the next few moments in the silence, allow yourself to breathe in that worthiness. Allow yourself to focus on all the goodness of your being. And just be still for a while in this beautiful silence together. And now, as we gently ease ourselves back into this time and this space, we are reminded of our worthiness, that we are created in the image and the likeness of God, that just by us being, we are radiant, that there's nothing that we have to do or say, just merely being is more than enough. There's a divine path that lays in front of us with so much goodness that if we just tune into our worthiness and our enoughness, we are able to see and receive from that. So let's take a deep breath together and release it and feel that wholeness of our being. And so it is. Amen.
Sons and daughters kneel at the throne of grace. Losers and winners, saints and sinners, one day will find their place and will all bow down. Kings will surrender their crowns and honor Jesus. He gave the love, unfailing love. He gave the love of God. kings will surrender their crown and honor Jesus and honor Spirit and honor loving us. We are the love, unfailing love. We are the love of God.
That's Amy Ione.
Good morning, everybody. It is Palm Sunday, of course, and we go back all of these many years to remember the story of Jesus. It's known as the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem that's written about at the beginning of what we call the New Testament by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's also the beginning of Holy Week, which tells the story of the climax of Jesus' life. And this has been one of the most, maybe the most important day designated on the Christian calendar since the year 500 or so. So a long time. And we look at it today in a new light. But at the time, these were stories written of high drama, and high drama in the story itself, in the city of Jerusalem, and also the situation of the time. So why do I say high drama? Well, it's because Jerusalem was the hub of Judea. It was the center of their religious life of the Jews. Obviously, Jews lived in Judea, just as Americans live in America, right? And they just had one temple, and it was in Jerusalem. And so this particular time was when crowds of people came to Jerusalem to celebrate their Passover, which was their most defining moment in Hebrew history, and we'll talk about that on Thursday night at our Holy Week service there. But it's unknown so much about this period of time. This was such an ancient time where most people were illiterate. There aren't records. But historians have guessed that the population of people who lived in Jerusalem is anywhere from the low side of 20,000 to perhaps 80,000 people lived there. But of course, on this holy day for them, the Passover, crowds and crowds came, and the Gospels say crowds came. The governor, the Roman governor who was overseeing Judea, came in residence to Jerusalem at this time. To him, it was kind of a podunk place. He had to leave his beach palace and beach home and come to Jerusalem. Extra guards and soldiers were stationed there because they needed to keep the peace. They needed to make sure that no trouble broke out. You see, in the year 63 BC, Pompey, the Roman, had conquered Jerusalem. And so since that period of time, the Israelites were oppressed, and they were under the thumb of the Roman Empire and all of their leadership. And so there was unrest that had developed in these 40 years or so. A lot of undercurrent of talk of revolution. We know to this day, we know of a Jewish sect called the Zealots, who are actively at work to try to build something against Rome. And indeed, just probably 35 to 40 years after this Holy Week event with Jesus, the Jews actually did revolt against Rome. So that's the history, the backdrop of why I'm saying this was a high drama area. So Jesus entered Jerusalem to the shouts of people saying, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," and "Hosanna, Hosanna, save us, save us." In addition to their oppression of the last 40-some years, they also had been on a downhill slide from the glory days of King David, which were 1,000 years prior. Many battles, many incidents of oppression had occurred in that time, dispersion of the Jewish people. So it's understandable that the crowd was hearing these rumors of Jesus being this expected Messiah, a human king, ruler who was going to come, and they weren't sure what he was going to do, but he was going to build an army and overthrow Rome. And so many of the people were shouting and waving tree branches and welcoming him into Jerusalem. At the same time, there were people that were worried he was nothing more than one more troublemaker who had been roaming the countryside for a number of years, one more revolutionary that was going to get them all into trouble. And so it was spoken in the Gospels that are written that they believed the chief priests and the teachers of the law were trying to trap Jesus and kill him and get rid of this revolutionary. So again, all of this is part of the high drama story. We don't really know, but we know that it was a crowded, volatile time for sure. Now, the disciples were also scared, worried. They didn't quite know how to interpret what Jesus was all about. They didn't quite understand who he was and what he might be doing. So that was also in this mix. And in this mix came what we know as the Passion Play. Just like I've told you about the Christmas stories, how we have two completely different Christmas stories of the Nativity in the Bible, they've just been blended and put all together, and Christianity has enjoyed the Nativity story. Well, it's similar to that. Our Passion Play that we have come to know and have probably seen produced in many churches. Maybe some of you have gone up to Orlando where they enact it. It's a reenactment of this high drama of the stories of the day, of the climax of Jesus' life. However, what we have today in Christianity is the product of the thinking of the hierarchy, the men who were the hierarchy of that early developing Christian church. It's also the product of thinking aside from Judaism, from the Gentile world of Roman and Greek polytheism that didn't really have the background of the great Hebrew history and the characters in that history. So Bishop Spong, who you've heard me mention, a progressive Episcopalian, John Shelby Spong, he has written some 25 books. John Spira has a reference list, a bibliography in the used bookstore, if you want to take a look at that. We haven't really seen any of Spong's books in our bookstore. Perhaps you're hoarding some at home that you're ready to share. But of course, he's always available on Google, and you can read many, many, many of his books. Spong has spent a lifetime researching and understanding early Christianity and the life of Jesus. So what he has come up with is that the stories about Jesus shortly after his death and beyond were, of course, they were not written down. These were stories for people that they heard in the temple. You see, all of the Jews worshiped together. After the period of Jesus, Christianity wasn't Christianity yet. It's true that Paul was spreading the word about Jesus in the Greek world in Asia Minor, but in Jerusalem and Judea, the Jews continued to meet and talk about Jesus in their regular liturgy. Because in Judaism, and still today, there is a reading that goes with every weekly reading, and it goes in sequence. And Spong postulates that along with the regular reading in the temple at that time, they added in sayings and stories about Jesus to show how he fit with that particular prophet or that particular hero of that particular leader throughout their Jewish history. He was very often likened to Moses. So this is the scene of what was going on right after Jesus' crucifixion as they continued to meet. And if we figure that Jesus' death was in the year 30 to 35, somewhere in that time frame, it wasn't until the year 70 that the Romans finally had their fill of the Jewish uprisings, and they came in and they destroyed Jerusalem. You've heard the stories of the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple. And with that went the seat of Jewish religious worship and experience, and they once again were meeting in small groups. It was not until this destruction of the temple period that the gospel stories that we know began to be written. The very first writer, Mark, wrote somewhere in the 60s and 70s, so either at the time of this first Jewish revolt or the time when the Romans came in and ended Jerusalem is when our gospel stories were written. So what happens in between is quite a mystery to us, but we can put aside that conjecture, and we can even put aside the distortions that Christianity wrote into the story as it developed, and we can look at the life, the teachings of Jesus, and we can reflect back on Holy Week. I was preparing for it today, and I realized that we've come so far in these years. Certainly many Christian churches still teach a literal story as if it's a factual account of what happened in that week. But many of us have ventured out to read and understand more, not just through Bishop Spong, but many scholars, and we have the archaeological evidence, and we have many ways of educating ourselves in reading about Jesus and his life. And so as we read and study for ourselves, then we formulate our meaning of what Holy Week was all about. What do you think it was about? Why did Jesus risk his life and go into Jerusalem? He certainly knew, the disciples certainly knew of the brutality of the Romans. You know, we hear about the Pax Romana. Well, that was peace brought about by extreme violence. You dared not get into trouble, or they would make an example of you. There were crosses lining the roadways where many were crucified. That was their example of punishment in the day. So why did Jesus risk his life and the life of others and go on in there? Why did he criticize and confront the Jewish leaders at the time that he accused of collaborating with the Roman Empire, of bending their beliefs? Well, I can only guess that in this month of focus on being enough, that Jesus exemplified for us being enough. He had that personal understanding of who he was, and it was beyond a belief in God in him. It was a knowing of his close relationship with his Creator, of his ability to withstand whatever it took to keep up the courage of his convictions. That's my opinion. You're free to develop your own. But as we think about the events of Holy Week, we can also think about Jesus' life. We really don't know much, if anything, about his life. We have the birth stories, but two of them are different, totally different. So it's just assumed that Jesus was raised in the country in Nazareth or Galilee. And then we have the stories of him teaching, and that's taken from what we think are some sayings that were recorded. The Gospel of Thomas that was found at Nag Hammadi in the early 1900s was a list of sayings, one after the other. It's thought that there was another sayings gospel that these early gospel writers drew on to put them in to blend a story that would be memorable for the hearers that were hearing about Jesus. So as we think about not knowing much about Jesus, we can just focus on what we know of these sayings and what we know of these teachings, that he was enough, that he felt he was enough. And you know, most of us, whether we went to church or not, we were raised with the belief that Jesus was a deity, that he had supernatural powers, that Jesus had more powers than we do. And of course, that excuses us from living to our fullest for standing up in the highest integrity, doesn't it? So we believe that Jesus, from everything that he wrote and talked about, he kept calling himself the Son of Man, meaning a regular guy. We don't know what his path was that got him to be so fully passionate and committed to the life that he was leading, but we have evidence that he certainly was passionate and committed to knowing the Father within. So Reverend Eric Butterworth, who's one of our revered Unity ministers and authors, has said in his book, Discover the Power Within You, he writes that Jesus was the great example. He was not the great exception. He was that great example for us of how to live and how to be. His way of life meets violence with love. Jesus sought justice, peace. Jesus valued the least and the lost among us. Jesus put principle ahead of personalities, showing that compassion for others with tolerance and humility and honesty and living his life to his fullest. He also taught an abundant life, not a life of poverty as we were led to believe. Jesus taught an abundant life, but an abundant life through compassionate giving and generosity for fellow human beings. We find that way difficult, don't we? Jesus' teachings are idealistic, they're demanding, and they're life-changing. And we don't want to change our life. We like our stuff. We like doing what we do. We kind of keep a blind eye on the troubles of others, especially those that are outside of our neighborhood or outside of our country. We've come to accept that there are gray areas and that power means a bit of shadiness. We've come to accept the idea that we all need to take care of ourselves first, every man for himself. We've accepted that there's greediness afoot. But I wonder if that's how Jesus would have lived. And can we step it up a little bit? You know, we need not beat ourselves up for falling more than somewhat short in these areas, but we can trust that a compassionate, abundant life is available for each and every one of us. And we can begin by looking at ourselves. We've had 6 weeks already of our Tuesday night class on conversation skills, crucial conversations. And through that, we've learned lots of tips and tools, but the basics are to be aware of yourself, to be aware of what your feelings are, to be aware of what your needs are. And I tell you what, we've discovered that's more difficult than it seems. For indeed, we aren't used to sharing our feelings openly in a calm conversation. We also learn to be compassionate and open-minded about seeking the opinions and the views of others, headed towards the goal of creating what the book calls a pool of shared meaning, where each person can calmly have a role in giving their opinion of the situation, and out of that usually comes a better outcome than either any of the parties would have come up with. So that's our class. But this week, as we finish up, we're going to be looking at compassion for ourselves, because we have not come to grips yet with being comfortable saying we're enough, that we are being and we're great the way we are. Of course, we strive to do more and be more, but we're not comfortable. And if you pay attention to see what the voice in your head says to you when you make a mistake, when you look at others, a lot of times it's very negative, very critical. Oh, you idiot, you did it again. Boom. And we don't think that that matters, but it matters, because violence towards yourself in your mind is destructive from the inside out. So as we think about compassion for ourselves, put away that voice. That is not the voice of God. It comes from eons of belief that in original sin, which is a concept the Christian church came up with in the 300s, that humankind is born in a sinful state. Well, here's the ironic part of the Holy Week story. That is totally unacceptable to Jews. It would be totally unacceptable to Jesus to be the keystone of Christianity and have that teaching that we are all inherently sinful. Jews do not believe that to this day. Jesus was a Jew, his followers were Jews, and all of those early people in his following held to this Jewish ideal that humankind is born free of sin, pure, innocent, and untainted. Of course, we have free will and we go our own way and do what we want, but can we start there? Can we get back to knowing that inherently we are untainted? And can we stop that negative chatter in our mind and start from a point of accepting what it is that we have done, what we would call wrong? Some of us have done some really wrong things. We can accept that. We don't gloss over it. We can try to make amends or reparations in some way if we can. We certainly can seek our version of forgiveness for ourselves, but let's clear out that nasty mind chatter that keeps us from being everything we can be. And I want to close with a quote from Bishop Spong. He says, "If God is the ground of being, as I believe God is, then the only way you and I can worship God is by having the courage to be all that we can be in the infinite variety of our humanity, whether we are male or female, gay or straight, transgender, bisexual, white, black, yellow, or brown, left-handed or right-handed, brilliant or not so brilliant. No matter what the human difference is, you have something to offer in your own being. Nobody else can offer what you have to offer. And the only way you can worship God is by daring to be all that you can be and not be bound by the fears of yesterday." And so ends his quote. As we look at Holy Week, at Jesus' arrival in Jerusalem, being aware of the danger he was in, he was not fearful, at least not enough to stop him. He dared to be himself. The gospel writers quoted a verse that's from Psalm 118 when they said, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And we can take in that verse too. And we can watch ourselves every day, especially in our stressful moments, and see, are we representing God? Are we representing the highest and best that we can be? I believe with more attention on that, we can certainly achieve win-win situations for all of us in our world. So let us remember Jesus' example and dare to be enough in this happy Holy Week. Thank you.
Reminder of Amazon Smile. I know many of us might not admit it. We do plenty of shopping online now, and Amazon Smile is a great way for you to give back. They take a portion of your purchases and go ahead and send that over to Unity of Pompano. So if you haven't already, make sure you sign up for Amazon Smile. And now as we compassionately give, we thank each and every one of you for the gifts that you give Unity of Pompano through your presence, your service, and your financial giving. If you could please hold your gift in your hand. If you've already given for the month, or perhaps you don't have a gift, please take one of our green proxy cards in the back of the seat and hold that and infuse your energy in that. Please say with me our offertory prayer. With a grateful heart, we acknowledge God as source of all that is. Today we declare love for ourselves and all others. Love is mine. Love and more love is mine. An ever-increasing love is mine. Everywhere I go, I see this love. I feel it, I experience it, I freely give it, and it multiplies itself around me. And so it is. Amen.
Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. King of Israel, welcome to our hearts. Here to reign in righteousness. Oh, ruler of the world, ruler of our hearts. Now ascend your throne. You are the King of Kings, Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Oh yeah. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. To Jerusalem, to the sons of men, riding on in gentle strength. Oh, come to save your own, come to give your life. The kingdom is at hand. You are the King of Kings, Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Oh yeah. King of Israel, welcome to our hearts. Here to reign in righteousness. Oh, ruler of the world, ruler of our hearts. Now ascend your throne. You are the King of Kings, Hosanna. Yeah. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. Yeah.
Just a reminder of Sunday sessions today at 12:30. Make sure you get a little something to hold you over and come right back over. And also about Holy Week, we look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday and Friday as well, and then for Easter Sunday next week. Our prayer chaplains are getting ready to pray with you. They're available. We have Cynthia over here. We have Catherine getting up. We have Nancy as well, and Carmela. So please take some time to have affirmative prayer with them. And if now, you can all rise as we go ahead and sing together. The prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all of we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment, peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. God bless everyone. Have a great Palm Sunday. We'll see you on Easter. Good job, gents. Good job, Amy.